it's Joe Pardavila. This is the Forbes Books podcast, and crypto and blockchain went mainstream in 2020, but 2021 has become the year of the NFT. NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, are blockchain-based records that represent pieces of digital media and are bought with cryptocurrency. The collectible works of art have been embraced by celebrities far and wide as Eminem, DeGeneres, and Shawn Mendez, and legit business influencers like Mark Cuban and Gary Vee. So, what's it all about? This week, I'm joined by an old friend of mine. His name is Peter Hurley. He is a world-renowned headshot photographer based in New York, and he's about to launch a photography-inspired NFT collection made to honor photographers around the world. Peter, how are you?
I'm good, Joe. Oh my gosh, I'm psyched to be on with you. I've been like chomping at the bit to see you. It's been pre-pandemic and, but I haven't seen you in forever, and it's good to catch up with you.
Well, we checked in with each other during the pandemic, and you being basically one of the best headshot photographers in New York City. I know you're not going to say that, but you are just renowned for headshots, and you've taken mine in the past. And one of the things I always get is people say to me, "You don't look as good as your headshot in real life." And I'm like, hey, listen, that's because of Peter Hurley. So there's only so much I can do, but Peter is obviously a very gifted photographer. And so let's step back because I really want to get into your latest project with NFT. So refresh my memory. You were sort of like this up-and-coming model, working the scene in New York when you fell in love with photography. Could you just take us back to that time and how that all happened?
Yeah. So I was a Jersey guy who went to school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got out of school. And I had always sailed. I grew up on the Jersey Shore, and I raced sailboats. So I started racing sailboats, and my neighbor was married to an artist whose sister was a designer from Donna Karan, and she saw me sailing one day, and she's like, "Have you ever modeled?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "No." I was like, "I don't know what to do with that." She's like, "Well, we need to get you sponsored." I was training for the Olympics at the time. So anyway, she brings this photographer, takes a bunch of pictures of me, sends them around, and then tells me, "Okay, you have an appointment at Ralph Lauren. You got to go up there and meet these people for this potential ad campaign they're doing." And I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" So I go into the city. I meet one of the designers who sends me to the art director who tells me I got this job or whatever. And I show up in Miami, and I'm in front of Bruce Weber's camera, and I didn't even know who Bruce was. I didn't know anything. I was just like, what am I doing here? And next thing I know, the shot goes global, and there's this picture of me sailing my boat all over the world. And it was super cool. And I didn't make the U.S. team that year, so I went back to New York. I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe this modeling thing will work out. So I realized how difficult it actually is, and had bumped around from agent to agent. But Bruce had always been friends with me and helped me along the way. Like, he's like, "All right, I'll take some pictures of you. I'll send you to this person." And he helped me get going. And then he encouraged me to pick up a camera. So I'm doing the whole model, actor, bartender dude thing and failing miserably. Like, I was terrible at acting. I don't know why I even tried. And I wasn't that good looking. So I was like, this is not going to last long. And I was bartending till like 4 a.m. So when Bruce kept saying, pick up a camera, pick up a camera, pick up a camera, I was like, maybe I should pick up a camera. So I did. And I utilized everything that I learned from being in front of the camera when I got behind the camera, and it's worked out pretty well.
So talk to me about that mentorship that Bruce gave you, because you hear a lot that word so much now, but back then you probably didn't even know what the hell a mentor was. So how important was it for someone like Bruce, who's incredibly accomplished, to help somebody like you? I mean, looking back at it, you're like, wow. I mean, there's no reason in the world he had to do that for me. Like, he could have just been like, "Hey, kid, good luck being a model in New York and bartending till 4 o'clock in the morning." But talk to me about that relationship, that mentor-mentee relationship.
Yeah, I asked him one day, I was like, how come you told me to pick up a camera? He goes, "Well, I just thought you'd take pictures of yourself." I was like, oh my God, I wasn't doing selfies. I mean, come on. He was joking. But yeah, I always say that when big things happen in life, it's usually a human being that interacted with you, that something happened, and all of a sudden your life went a different direction. At least for me, the big moves and everything that changed the trajectory of my life. First, it was Keggy Bradford, who was the woman, the designer, who said, "Hey, you could model." That opened up this new world. And then it was Bruce. And it wasn't like, and I tell photographers this, it wasn't like he sat me down and said, "Okay, here's your ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. It wasn't like that. It was just the encouragement. And I get this question all the time. Well, what? Because a lot of photographers that I actually coach photographers now. I got into that and I love it. And I'm mentoring photographers globally now, and I hope they're getting as much from me as what Bruce gave me. But it's not really hands-on, and it's not really. It was more of an awareness. It was like, okay, Bruce is at the top. He's encouraging me to take pictures. What do his pictures look like? What is it like to be on set with him? Like, I saw it all. All the other amazing photographers that I got to work with. I got to see what it was like, and I got to be directed by them by being in front of the camera and understand the connection between the subject and the photographer and how precious that is. So my relationship with Bruce started in Miami when I was on my boat and he started taking pictures of me. And I remember him talking to me. It had nothing to do with the pictures. He's like, where are you from? What are you doing? And just getting to know me. And those pictures are amazing. And he's amazing. So, but the encouragement to get me to start, and the time I spent with him back then, was ridiculously valuable. And I think it was more belief than anything. I think I just had he instilled in me a belief that I could do it. And then that became no holds barred attitude toward going at it, and in New York City, when you're entering how many photographers are here?
Oh, God.
I was like, this is how I'm a low man on the totem pole. But you know what it was? I went through the headshot process and I saw the industry, and it well. So, what photographers were charging for headshots. Like, I was shooting models, and models weren't paying very much. So I was like, well, these actors, somebody's got something going on here. These headshot photographers are charging like $1,000 a headshot. I was like, I got to get on that gravy train somehow. And that was like, so that was like the focus, but I had gone through it. That's why I guess headshots became my thing.
And so that became your introduction to entrepreneurship, which probably at the time you had no idea what entrepreneurship was, right? Like, that's probably the furthest thing in your mind was like, because now all of a sudden, it's not like you were doing freelance photography, you were your own business. So how did you create that business and scale it up to where it is now? Because right now you have this beautiful studio in Midtown Manhattan. People from all over the world come to you for their photos. So how did that scale up process happen? Was it baby steps? Was it, as you know, and you mentioned, it's expensive in New York and to rent space and all that stuff. So how did you incrementally scale up where you became so accomplished and could afford a living and a studio in New York?
Oh my gosh, that's awesome question. You know what I'm most proud of? That I raised my twin daughters in New York and gave them the life that I was able to have growing up. I was always worried about that. I was like, am I, the parental pressure of when I said to my parents, hey, I'm going to be a photographer and make it, and they're like, what? No, go work for your brother. It's like, my brother was the successful one. I think the thing was, I really look back at it, and nobody told me when I picked up a camera that I need to put a business hat on. I was like, I had no clue. My first job was like filing in my dad's office. He was a lawyer. Then I was a sailing instructor. And then in the summers, I delivered beer for Coors. Those were the jobs that I had up to that point. I've been a model. Like, I never had any responsibility. Like, I was basically just like floating around. So when I took this on, I was like, holy smokes, I know I got to actually run a business. And I got the bug of the entrepreneurial bug. So I was like, okay, well, I can only make so much by having a human being in front of my camera pressing the button. That's like, I'm getting paid for my time, and there's only so much time. I remember once I had made it pretty big in New York, I was booked like 3 months in advance, and I only had one source of income. I only had photography. So I had to have that person in front of my camera, and I had to be there. And I was like, this is really, I was working with my makeup. I remember like early mornings to being in the studio till midnight a lot of times, trying to make ends meet in New York City. And that's when I said, okay, something's got to change. And then I started to look for, it's funny because I don't know where my entrepreneurial thing started to kick in, but I had this mentor, and his name's Bob Proctor, and he's just been an awesome person that I follow in personal development, and he said you have to have multiple sources of income, and then I started to look for other things outside photography, and it just muddled everything. Like I got burnt out on photography. I was trying to make a living in other areas, and I was like, this isn't working at all. And then lo and behold, I found that everything, when I decided to turn my attention to what was beneath my feet, which was photography, everything fell into place. So I was shooting, and then I was like, well, what happened was people would call for a headshot, and I'd be like, it's $1,000 or whatever it was at the time. And they'd be like, click. And I'd be like, but that person needs a picture. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait, but they're leaving. That's a client that I can't service because I'm too expensive. So I was like, what if I start coaching them? And I coach a photographer, plop them in my studio, and they start shooting at a lower price point. And then I was like, wait a minute. Okay, well, I'm doing that in New York. Why don't I open up in LA and do it? And I did it. And then I was like, holy smokes, wait a minute. What if I do this globally? So I kind of did it globally. I created the Headshot Crew, which is the largest group of headshot specialists in the world. And we have photographers all over the world. And then I opened up an agency to handle them so that we can do jobs globally for clients. We just finished an awesome job for Chubb where I was shooting in New York while simultaneously we had a guy shooting in Philly. We had a guy shooting outside of Chicago and a guy in Berlin. And we had to get the job done all in like 2 days and spit it out and get it over to Chubb. And it had to match everywhere. And we did photo and video. And it was awesome. So
wow.
That's really been my focus, is really figuring out what I can do photographically. I designed some lights with another company called Westcott and other products with them. So I found that utilizing the photography opened up all these doors that I didn't even know were there. I didn't know they existed, you know?
Wow. And you know what? It's so amazing how you transition in such an organic way, because all of that you just talked about, that's what people go to get their master's in business for. Like you literally were getting an MBA on the fly while you were building these companies. What kind of missteps did you make along the way as you were creating this Headshot Crew? Was there a lot of trial and error as to how to execute it? Because this seemed like a big task, because you were doing this, but you were still a headshot photographer in New York. So what kind of mistakes did you make that you're looking back, you're like, damn, I wish I didn't do that?
Oh my gosh. Fortunately, there haven't been a ton.
Good.
I call myself a student of the game. The one thing that's so funny is that I never took a photography course. So when I teach, I don't know, like other photographers will tell me, well, that's the blah, 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 blah rule, or this thing or that thing. And I was like, I just point the lights at people and I take the picture, and it worked. And I'm like, I don't know. I make up my own stuff. So when I coach, I always have that to fall back on, and I don't use it as a crutch or anything. I just use it as, guys, this is photography. Any rules I put out there are meant to be broken. And I am constantly trying to absorb information so that I can be better at it. So, and I found that repetition's the key. So, I've been fortunate enough to have you in front of my camera. Actually, the group shot I took of you and your crew was like one of my favorite. I love that picture. And we just did that on the fly. There were no rules. I was just putting lights everywhere. And it's just,
Well, the one thing is, but how do you merge the two? Because you obviously have the creative side of your brain, but you also have this business side of the brain. Do those ever come in conflict? Like where you're like, man, I want to get this shot right, but your business brain's like, oh man, I got to wrap this up because I got another meeting at 2. Do those ever, do they ever fight with each other?
That's hilarious. I think this whole right brain, left brain thing, I guess I got a little bit of both. I had a really hard time calling myself an artist for a long time. I was like, this is just not me. I'm not an artist. I was like, so I guess I'm more left brain. I think in school I was more left brain, but picking up the camera and then doing the things that I've done, I have to have some of the right brain working. So I try to stay focused. I did this, I was working with a psychologist and I did this TEDx talk, which I was so proud of. One of my biggest things and purposes in life. I can't stand people who don't like their appearance. So I just want people to walk around the planet Earth feeling lucky to be here and stop worrying about, how they look all the time. So I did this thing with Dr. Anna Rowley, and we were working on it, and she goes, you're like a lighthouse. When the beam's on me, I got you, but then your brain goes somewhere, and I got to wait for it to come back around again until you talk to me again, and you're with me. And I was like, I do that all the time. So I found that there's only 2 areas of my life where I'm super hyper-focused and not all over the place, and that's like when I'm sailing a boat or when I'm looking through a viewfinder of a camera. So the camera really helps me stay focused on all that stuff. And when I'm shooting. And when I get away from it, that's when everything comes back into play. And it just seemed to work for me. So I use it like I'm shooting in a little bit, and I'm excited. I was excited to be on here with you. I got a big plan for today with all the other stuff I got in the mix. But I think the key to it is all of it and everything coming my way and everything that I'm working on is that I don't feel like I'm working. I just love it.
Just picking up on some of the stuff you talked about there is the imposter syndrome. People, this is a thing that people feel like they've gotten to a certain level and they're like, I don't deserve to be here. And it seems like you've sort of battled that demon a little bit as well. How do you work your way through that? Because when you became this accomplished photographer in New York, just listening to you and knowing you're probably like, what the hell am I doing here? I'm just like some kid from Jersey who knows how to like row a boat. I mean, is that something that you've consistently had to fight during your career?
I think so. I think everybody does, right? Like for me, it hits when I remember telling Bruce, he's like, well, what do you want to shoot? I said, I want to do stuff like you. Like, I want to shoot Vanity Fair, and I want to shoot like ad campaigns and stuff. And my career went a different path, and I didn't get to do that stuff and do the celebrity stuff. So sometimes when I get the celebrities in and work with them, like it hits you, you're like, holy smokes, I'm here. This is really happening. This is cool. But yeah, I think imposter syndrome is something that if you're not feeling that way, you're not pushing enough. You're not pushing against your comfort zone. So for me, it's about finding things that do press that button. If you get that button hit and you got work to do in an area, and that's kind of the awareness of that is kind of cool, and at the same time it's kind of freaking you out. But I try and wrap my brain around it and then go from there, and it helps, especially when so many things are coming at me that I'm not even sure I can handle. I think my experience with a camera and going through that process and stuff allowed me to understand that I can take something I have no clue about and be, find a niche in it and be one of the best in the world at that. So I was like, okay, I did that. And I was one of the best sailors in the world, and I did that, but I knew that my whole life. So now when stuff comes at me, I just decide whether I think it's cool or if I want to get involved with it, or if it's really based on people, like are the people that I might work with interesting? Is it a company that I want to work with that I really enjoy and like what they do? There's all sorts of things that come into play. But I'm always going in like with this fresh brain, like I'm going to learn too. This is cool.
And to do a little full disclosure as to how we met, you went, like, as the kids say, viral about 9 or 10 years ago, when you had a YouTube video about squinching. And so this is and a lot of celebrities always have that one moment, or that, one movie, artist has that one hit that breaks them through. And you broke through because of something called squinching. And I know it's hard to do it on a podcast without video, but can you explain to folks what squinching is and why it really propelled your career, not just in the entertainment space, but like lay people who probably knew nothing about headshot photography knew who Peter Hurley was?
Yeah, I mean, that was amazing. I mean, that's when YouTube was cranking for me. I'd put a video out and things would happen, and I'd be like, oh my gosh. I mean, the squinching video came out and everything went nuts. So when I was modeling, I used to talk to other models like, how do you look cool in front of a camera? Like, what do you do? And all these guys that I respected and in the industry that were working, and they'd talk to me and they'd be like, well, you just kind of like nobody really had an answer. So I was like, I don't understand it. So I started photographing people, and I remember the first headshots I took, I said to the person, like, I had a model who said, hey, I'm acting too. Can you take a headshot? I said, yeah, I think so. Just look in the camera. I'm going to get a little closer to you, and then you look directly in the camera. And they would look directly in the camera and look spaced out. And I was like, what is wrong with you? Stop doing that. Don't look like, don't do that. And I was like, there's something that has to be with the look. And I was like, it's got to be the eyes. So I was like, so I realized confidence comes from the eyes. So does fear, deer in the headlights, right? So I was like, well, what is it? And then Tire Bank had come out with smizing and stuff, and everybody said, well, do you want me to smize? I was like, I don't know what smize. I don't really understand the smize, but I was like, what I need is I need just your lower eyelids to narrow between the distance between your pupil and your lower eyelids. I need your lower eyelids to go up. I don't need your top eyelid to go down, because then it looks like you're squinting too hard, even though I said squint forever. And then my daughter said squinch or something, and I was like, "Oh, that's it. It's like a pinching of the underlid of the eyelid of some sort."
Mm-hmm.
And Joe, you do it really well. I don't even have to. You're like a pro. It's so good. But yeah, the video went viral. They had me on Good Morning America. You guys had me on the show. We had a little. We did a little. I gotta find that audio. We had a little thing about it. It was so cool. And still today, people, everybody talks about squinching. I trademarked. Somebody was using it, and not mentioning me. I was like, I made up the word. I was like, I should trademark this. So I trademarked it. And everybody listening should go look at that video and then practice in the mirror. And if you can DM me on Instagram if you haven't. If you want me to dive into it further with you, but
the very first video was called "It's All About the Jaw," so you didn't even have your squinching thing down pat yet, but you were talking about it, and that video has 4 million views, and it's basically you coaching a model how to pose in the camera. I mean, it's amazing what becomes entertaining and what becomes informative. Looking back now, I think that was 9 years ago. Can you believe that 4 million people watched you coach someone how to take a photo? I mean, that's mind-boggling.
It's unbelievable. And, I did that with my iPhone. I just was like, I was doing this with those guys in Charleston. I did this video. I had gotten into coaching, and they said, you're the headshot guy. You've got to do a headshot tutorial. So we're going to film it. So we filmed it. He goes, okay, now we got to promote it. Pick your number one tip on how people look better, and just call this guy, Scott Kelby, who is a good friend of mine, one of the biggest photography teachers in the world. He's an amazing guy. And just get on his blog. And I was like, okay. So we got in touch with Scott. Scott's assistant got me, said, you can either write or you can do a video. And I was like, well, I don't write. I'm not going to write. I don't do video either, but I got an iPhone. So I was like, I'll do that. So I put it up on Scott's blog. It was the biggest blog post of the year, and the thing went nuts. And in it, I yelled this word. I don't know where this word came from, but in it, this girl, I show this girl's jawline before and after, and when she puts her jawline out, I yell "shebang" in the video, and that went. I don't know why I came up with this word, but that went crazy. And now everywhere I go, people, I was walking down this street in Paris, and a guy ran out of a restaurant and yelled "shebang" at me, and I was like, "What?" I was riding a bike down the streets of New York, and I'm riding this bike, and there's this cop in this intersection directing traffic, and I ride by him, and I hear "shebang," and I was like, I had to stop. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, I'm a photographer. I saw your video. I was like, oh my gosh.
That's crazy. And so speaking of shebang, let's pivot to Shabangrs, which is the NFT project you're working on that I'm fascinated to get into. So, and I understand that NFT stands for non-fungible token. It's basically a digital image that you own. So I'm going to phrase this question like this, Peter. If you were trapped in an elevator with someone, they ask you, what are you up to? And he goes, I'm working on an NFT. How would you describe what an NFT is to someone who's never heard of those 3 letters together?
Oh my gosh, put me on the spot, because this is all new to me too. So I think the coolest thing about NFTs is that it's ownership, I guess. So it could be anything. It could be, you could create a Instagram post or something, and you could turn it into an NFT, and then the person, you don't even own the thing, the person would own that, and somebody could print it and put it up on a wall as a JPEG, but they don't own it. The person who actually owns the NFT owns it. And in a digital landscape, you can follow that ownership through the blockchain, and always see, because it's so transparent, always see who owns the rights to that, or owns the NFT, or whoever purchased the NFT. So being a photographer and a creator and creating stuff, I could sell an NFT. Somebody could own it. It could be an image of mine, and I could either sell the copyright or not sell the copyright. But they are the owner of that thing, that whatever it is that I created, whether it be a digital image or not.
I'm just curious because you've always been pretty technically advanced. Like I've seen you like work around a Mac, and I'm like, this guy's like a wizard. When did you discover NFTs, and how did you think you could fit into the space of NFT?
I think with all the crypto stuff going on, I think there's a lot of information being thrown out there, and sifting through it is really difficult. So I follow a bunch of people, and I've gotten close with some of them, and everybody's talking about NFTs. So I guess it started with Gary Vee because I'm on his text thread, and he's texting about this VFriend stuff, and I was like kind of into it and kind of not sure about it, and I looked at it, and there's this thing called Discord, which I didn't even know what it was. And I was like, go on there, and I follow VFriends, and I'm like, okay, I'm in this thing now. What is this? That was maybe, I don't know, 6-8 months, maybe a year ago, max.
Okay.
And then I started working with, I got the opportunity to photograph Tom and Lisa Bilyeu, and Tom just got involved with the NFTs and started speaking about it. And a lot of my knowledge comes from listening to him. So watching his Instagram lives, looking at stuff that he's doing, and getting him in front of my camera and being with him and talking about it for 2 seconds. I was like, this stuff is, he's game on. Like if there's people like that I respect in the industry getting involved in it, I think this is going to be something big. And it's so new that I don't know how many people are listening to this or like, what the heck? I've never even heard of an NFT. I think we're at that moment, and soon everybody's going to hear about it. So I think jumping in on stuff early is fantastic. And I didn't have my issue with, I'm watching it from the outside going, okay, this is great. Photographers are probably going to benefit from this greatly, the ones that actually create content that they can sell. I photograph people, and I don't think that other people should be buying other people's photographs. I mean, I think that's weird, unless they're a celebrity maybe, right. And I did it with the purpose of selling it as who wants to put another person on their wall unless it's a portrait or something that's a little artsier. That's not my thing. I'm a personal brand manager. Like people come in here, I take their headshots, or I do portraits of them, and they use it for their brand. I don't want to sell it to somebody else as an NFT. So I'm not thinking like that. However, I'm coaching other photographers on this, saying, I had a woman in here the other day who did this amazing digital art, and I was like, you got to get these sold as NFTs for sure. Right now is the time. Let's do it. So I'm kind of spearheading the photo industry that direction, and I never thought about it in terms of my own creative ability, but it kind of fell in my lap in a way that's been amazing.
And it's no joke getting in early. People are saying that this is the first ever photography-focused NFT collection. So you talked about what you can do. So what did you end up doing as part of the Shabangrs NFTs? Like how would you describe them?
I would describe them as a collectible. So I'm creating a metaverse. This is all sounding unbelievably strange.
Yeah, you're very bougie, Pete. What?
Yeah. So no photographer's ever come into this space and created a collectible that as a photographer myself, I mean, I was never into, baseball cards or, trading anything. But as photographers all know, they have cameras sitting on their shelves and like old cameras. And you go to, if I go to a garage sale, I'm digging through for the oldest camera I could find and see if I could find something cool that just looks cool so I could stick it on my shelf, or whatever. So I always collected cameras, but I've got them randomly around. I'm really upset that the first camera that I bought when I first started taking pictures, I can't find it. And I think it broke, and I either threw it out or brought it to a used camera place. I can't find it. I'm so upset I don't have that camera. But I had another photographer who I work with, who I coach, and one of my associates in the headshot crew. So I coach these photographers, and if they're really good, they become associates. So his name's Vadim. He's in Florida, and he's super into NFTs, and he's been studying it for a year and things like this. And he comes to me, and he goes, "Look, I want you to look at this. I want you to think about this." He goes, "I want to get an artist and build this collectible thing, and I think you and I teaming up would be perfect to do this." And I was like, yeah. I've heard about the NFT thing. I really don't understand it, but I'm doing as much as I can to learn. He goes, well, let me work on some artists and show you some stuff that I think would work. And he shows me, Sergey is this artist in the Ukraine. He shows me Sergey's work and it's and what he thought it would be. And it's a little guy with a camera on his head, which doesn't sound that amazing. But when I saw it, I was like, that's cool. Holy smokes. I was like, I don't have the ability to create something like that. That thing's really cool. So he took a bunch of different manufacturers of cameras, placed them on his head, put these little figure guys in head to toe in really cool clothes and gave them little accessories. And Vadim says, okay, we got to call him something. And do you want in on it? I was like, I love them. I think they're super cool. I'll stand behind it. I'll get going. I think this is great. And we'll bring something special to the photo industry. And he's like, well, what are we going to call him? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, well, you got to think of something. I was like, I was like, it's got to be cool. And I thought about this. I go to photo conferences. I'm a Canon Explorer Light, and they send me all over the place to speak. And I get the whole crowd. I'll speak to like 1,000 people and have them yell shebang or whatever. At least pre-COVID,
Right.
I don't know. But I stopped yelling shebang at stuff. And this marketing guy that I'd worked, he's like, you can't stop doing that. What are you doing?
It's like the Rolling Stones not playing Start Me Up. Come on.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Peter?
Exactly. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll yell it. And I define shebang. And I just yell shebang when I get a good picture. That's essentially it, to get myself excited and my subject excited. So I said to Vadim, I was like, let's just call them shebangers. And I was like, let's make it shorter. Get rid of the E. I don't need the E on the end anymore because I think it's cooler without it. So we called it Shabangrs. And we made 10,000 of them. They're all different. They're all unique. And we're launching it October 30th at 9 a.m. Eastern. They'll be going out to the public we're using Shabangrs.com. And we're also got a Discord where we're giving everybody the information. We did have a pre-sale for my headshot crew and for other people around the world, and we've done really well on that. So I'm excited. Like, I love the things. I'm starting to understand how the blockchain works and how to get. I'm teaching all the photographers how to get their wallet and get Ethereum, and then get Ethereum in their wallet so that they can make these purchases, and educating them on NFTs as a whole and how that's going to affect our industry. And I think it's here to stay. And I think people are so fired up about it. I think since it's so new, people question it, but it's taken off like wildfire. And some of the stuff out there has been really ridiculous in terms of that. So I'm learning, and I don't really know what the future is, but I know that with my Shabangers, I'm using it as a platform to coach and teach and create a community. So the people with the Shabanger, we're actually adding utilities to them. So they'll be able to, like, for instance, a lot of my gear is very precious to me. So I want to give that gear away to other people through this program. So some people are going to win the EOS R5 from Canon, which is the camera I shoot. Some people are going to have attached to their Shabanger a Flex kit, which is the studio shooting kit that I use from Westcott. Somebody's going to get to spend a day with me, and I travel to wherever they are in the world, and I hang out with them for a day, whether they're shooting or want to shoot or want to be mentored or whatever it is. It's things like that. We got a bunch of Shabanger swag going on, and then once we meet these certain thresholds, we're going to create this little metaverse called Shabangersville. And I am going to be the mayor, and I'm going to oversee Shabangersville, and we are going to gamify it and have some teaching moments in there with photography and stuff like that. And I'm going to use my sponsors to hopefully open up little places that these little Shabangers can come to life. I mean, it's just all so interesting and crazy right now.
I just wish you were more excited about it, Peter. You don't sound like you're really into it at all.
Oh my God. It came out of left field. It's funny that when he hit me with it, I was like, first of all, the fact that I know what NFTs are is amazing. And I only know that because I follow some influencers on social that talk about them all the time. But I want to also be able to educate, since I'm an educator, educate photographers on getting into this space. So this is a perfect way to do it, and and getting the photo community behind Shabangrs has been great.
And so let's talk about money here. Because, Forbes Books, we got to talk about money. And for a lot of people who are somewhat familiar with the NFT space, they see these stories, these headline-making stories about Christie's selling one NFT for like $69 million, and you're seeing these auctions for millions of dollars. What are the price points for these Shabangrs NFTs? I mean, because that's the one thing that concerns me about this whole NFT space. Whereas with crypto, it's sort of democratized money. Basically, anyone can be involved in crypto. You don't have to be a multimillionaire. But it seems like especially in this early Wild West version of the NFT, it's like a rich man's game. So what price point are you coming in? What's the value of these? Break that down for me, Peter.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, what's gone on with these NFTs has been crazy. And I think it's an eye-opener for everybody. And people, I guess something's worth something, whatever somebody will pay for it, right? So I always thought that with when I'm coaching business with photographers is like, what is your price point in terms of your service? Like, what is that worth? Like, what is a Peter Hurley headshot worth these days? And it's worth a pretty penny. So I put that on it. So it's the same with anything, trying to figure out its value. And then with NFTs, they can be traded or sold after, the first initial purchase, so that is a fluctuating number. So it's just what people are willing to pay. And obviously in the NFT world, we've seen stuff go ballistic, like that stuff, which I can't wrap my brain around. It's amazing. So the starting price point, and we talked about this, trying to figure out what one of these little guys is worth, and we decided it's a 0.09 of an Ethereum, so which is fluctuating, obviously, and I think Ethereum's up today, but it's about 300. When we started this, it was about $350. So maybe it's 375 or something now, something like that. Then there's a gas fee, so to make the transaction, and that's really that fluctuates all over the place. So people are trying to time it right. We have not launched to the public, so any window of sales has been a small window. So that's been something that could jack the price up on whatever sale you're doing, dependent upon time and dependent upon how much those fees are, which it tells you when you're trying to buy something, like what it is. But our price for selling the Shabangrs is 0.09 of Ethereum. So, and it fluctuates based off of Ethereum.
Interesting. And wrapping this up, Peter, what does the future of Shabangrs look like? As business works, you don't want to flood the market with 10,000 Shabangrs, and all of a sudden they're worth nothing. So how do you manage that? I mean, again, this is so new. It's like the housing market. There's X number of houses available, so that's what they're worth. So how do you guys control that so you don't devalue the product?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out how many people really want to get into the Shabangersville and get this thing started, and how much that's worth to them. So we'll see. I mean, we've sold a ton so far, and I'm like amazed. So they might sell out if we sell 10,000 of them. For me, it's more of a marathon than a sprint. I don't put my name behind stuff like willy-nilly, so I don't want the value of these, and plus my whole headshot crew and everybody in my reputation and everybody's behind this project. So we want to see these as a success, and I think getting my feet into this NFT market early is like the greatest thing ever. So this is something that's going to play out over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, who knows. For me, it's really about building out this community and having a community base behind it, because if I put some utility into the NFT, for me, $350 for a collectible, I think it's cheap for a Shabangr with some of the stuff that you get with it. But we're figuring that as we go. But when we open up this Shabangersville thing, it's going to that's the entry point, this way to get in, and we'll see if we'll see what's coming down the road. I need to keep the value in these things, and I need to stay committed to them, and that's the plan. So I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to build out my little metaverse.
Awesome. His name is Peter Hurley. He is the founder of the Headshot Crew and the co-founder of the Shabangrs NFT project. Peter, judging by your track record, I would not bet against you when it comes to these NFTs. So I'm wishing you the best of luck, and I can't wait to see what happens in Shabangersville.
Thanks, Joe. I can't wait either. It's been fun, and the press coming out and to see my name associated with NFTs out there has been a little crazy. So I'm really enjoying the ride.
Come a long way since squinching, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Jeez.
All right. Well, thank you, Peter, man. Good luck, all right?
Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. And to find out more about Peter's NFT project, check out Shabangrs.com. That's Shabangrs.com. And that's it for this edition of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.